What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another stream for you guys. Obviously, we play Manchester City at home this weekend, which could very well be Pedro Porro's debut. But there is a lot to get through today. So we're gonna respond to the response from the board.
React to the
THST. After that, we're going to go into the preview, get into the BetMate stuff, and then it is your chance to have your say. But it's been very interesting to see the response from the board. The Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust did ask 4 questions to the board during the January transfer window. The board responded saying that they will respond to this after the January transfer window, which they have done. So shall we get into them? First of all, let's go through the 4 questions and then we'll get into what they have responded. I mean, the first question was, will the club share its medium and long-term strategy for success both on and off the pitch? How is the club measuring progress and how does it judge current outcomes against those measurements? The next question was, the manager employed by the club has not signed a new contract and tells us that we should lower our expectations about on-the-field outcomes. He has said publicly that the club needs to spend big money every window just to compete. How does that align with the board's philosophy for achieving success? And the third question was, are you satisfied with player recruitment in the recent transfer windows and with the performance of the youth teams and the development and supply of younger players through the first team? Are there any plans to improve this? And last but not least, does the club have a plan for further investment to ensure that the club remains competitive on the pitch in the face of substantial additional investment by other Premier League clubs? Is the club closer to securing a naming rights provider? Is there a plan for further investment from ENIC or from other potential investors or buyers? So those were the 4 questions brought from the Supporters Trust to the board. Now let's get into the answers.
They said they'll wait till after the transfer window, didn't they, to respond to these questions. Everyone's been eagerly anticipating what the club has to say for itself regarding these questions. So the first question was, will the club share its medium and long-term strategy for success, both on and off the pitch? How is the club measuring progress and how does it judge current outcomes against those measures? The answer, we can bring it on here, says in the last 20 years the club has qualified for European competitions 17 times, 13 of which are currently successive, including 6 Champions League campaigns. We set out our business model in last year's financial results announcement. Below is the relevant section. They go on to basically detail the section of the financial results, which they believe details the club's strategy. Basically, I'm not going to go through it, but it's basically just saying how they're going to build up revenue through NFL, the stadium, all the events, and then reinvest that money back into the club. They follow on by saying, we have delivered world-class facilities which are in place to generate income for investment in our football activities. Our stadium debt is long-term, ensuring limited impact on the club's ability to invest. Completing the stadium was always a key step in our strategy of increasing and diversifying recurring revenues to fund our football activities. The COVID-19 pandemic saw a 2-year disruption and a loss of circa 200 million, but we are now back on the planned journey of growth. We have seen the return of football, third-party events and visitor attractions income. Growing our revenues is essential for our club to continue to have the ability to invest in players. We want to be consistently qualifying for the Champions League and challenging for and winning major trophies. Returning to the Champions League this season was important, although we acknowledge the number of teams competing for those 4 places. We are working hard to build a strong, deep squad with a winning mentality. There's been a detailed review of all departments on the footballing side of the club in order to constantly improve and change, and changes have been and continue to be made to ensure we remain competitive, attract and retain the best players and continue to progress. Improved recruitment and world-class academy are also vital to our future success. So that was the response to the first question. And look, I think we'll get into the responses to the other questions, but I think in terms of that response, they're not really saying much, just saying we're going to invest the money that we make. That's the plan into the club. They also obviously blaming the pandemic for maybe lack of spending or maybe the disruption to it, but they're saying, you know, now the pandemic's over, we are investing in the club. But one line people are a bit angry about is they say we want to be consistently qualifying for Champions League and challenging for winning and winning major honours. Is the fact they put Champions League first and then ahead of major honours, does that kind of tell you where their mind's at?
Yeah, I think it does, to be honest. And look, on the face of things, I've got a few problems with the way these answers were delivered. I don't have too much of a problem specifically with the answer to number one, but I do have a problem with the way they're delivering it, to be honest. And I think it is a problem when you're looking at the way that they're wording it, where it looks as though Champions League is the first and foremost thought of what they want to do and achieve on the pitch, because of that's what's going to achieve the money first and foremost, where they don't want to push the boat out to make us consistent achievers at the top of the league and consistent achievers by winning trophies year on, year out. That doesn't seem to me what their first goal is. Their first goal is to get Champions League football, where if we were achieving to fight for the top, achieving for fight of these competitions, that would just be a given, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so you'd hope. Yeah, exactly. So the aim should be aiming really, as Danny Blanchfeld said, you should aim so high that even failure is an echo of glory. That's what we should be looking at. So we should be looking right at the top, not just for getting in the Champions League, albeit. I do think it's good to get regular Champions League football. I think people a lot of the time think, oh, you only want top four, you only want Champions League. It's not just about, for me anyway, the revenues and getting in that top four position. Obviously for the club that's a big thing, but for me it's those European nights, bringing Barcelona to the Lane or something, or going to the Bernabeu, having those amazing knockout games. And European nights, especially for Tottenham, they've always been synonymous. We know all the white kit, the whole white kit, the under the lights. So European nights have always been special to Spurs. So you always want the biggest European nights every season, and the only way of doing that is qualifying for the Champions League. So I don't think people should cast that aside and take it for granted getting the Champions League.
No, definitely not. But it shouldn't be the first and foremost aim of this football club. They should be going for glory on the pitch. Should be the first and foremost aim. Fighting at the top of the league, trying to get trophies in. Like I said, if we do those things and we do those things well, Champions League qualification would be a given.
Yeah, and that's obviously the what you call the Holy Grail. That's what you want.
And also, when people are digging into the club about them harping on about the revenues, about money coming in, like, that's a good thing, by the way, for this football club. It's a good thing for the fan base as well, if the club acted on that in the right way. There's, you got to take pride in a sense, like, not with the current situation we're in, but you've got to be looking at it in a good way, that Spurs want to be maximising the revenues, want to be bringing in the most amount of money with everything going on, with the concerts, with the stadium, all that kind of stuff. It's a good thing that Spurs are bringing in so much money, but they need to act in the right way with that money, and they need to use it to develop the football team into making us into a powerhouse in this league, a powerhouse in Europe, not just making us just about getting into the top four and building the infrastructure around the stadium.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be priority. How the priority shouldn't be bringing the money. That should be, obviously, that's commendable and it's impressive and it's an important thing to do. But the priority always has to be the football club and how the football operations are run and how we spend the money, and I'm thinking about the strategy of the team and where we're moving forward, and not always just about thinking about where we're making the money, and then secondary is like what we do with it, and all these kind of things. And I feel like the priorities a lot of the time is revenues first, and then football operations come second.
Absolutely.
And that's a problem. The next question, let's bring up the phone, says the manager employed by the club has not signed a new contract, and tells us that we should lower our expectations about on-field outcomes. He has said publicly that the club needs to spend big money every window just to compete. How does this align with the board's philosophy of achieving success? The board have responded saying, like everyone at the club, our head coach wants the team to compete for top honours. The club has invested heavily in the squad. This is a continuous continual process with the aim of standing the club in good stead on the pitch for years to come. Since the opening of the stadium in April 2019, we have spent more than 500 million, putting us in the top quartile of spending in the Premier League. We have made significant investments in the women's team too. In addition to the summer investment of over 200 million, we have committed to a further 47 million spend in January. Despite this, we consistently see references to our perceived lack of backing for our head coaches and lack of spending. It's important that we deal with facts. Our spending levels quite clearly show that we have backed our football side. There is always a fine line between long-term investment and short-termism, which is why our recruitment has to be first class. Mistakes at this level leave a financial and sporting impact for future seasons. We have felt the financial impact of supporting player purchases which have not worked out as hoped. We have taken steps to improve this area of operations. The recent window reflects this. So they've kind of come out a bit swinging with that response. There's a hint of maybe a bit annoyed about the constant jibes that they don't spend enough, or they're not, or they don't back their managers.
It's a vibe of we're a corporate beast, we're much cleverer than you, and we don't really care what you say, and we're just responding this just to save a bit of face. And it's basically like, it's like talking down to us, basically. That's what I'm trying to get at. That's what it feels like to me. Like, this whole statement, it feels like they're just talking down to us, and they're completely up their own asses and feel like they're not doing anything wrong whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem a bit
arrogant. That's right. That's the word, arrogant.
Yeah, for me, it does seem a bit like they're pissed off with the kind of perception of their dealings, that they don't back their managers. They're annoyed with the fact that it keeps getting brought up that the board is the problem. They clearly don't feel like they're doing anything wrong. They feel like they invest enough money, all these kind of things. All I would say is if I'm responding to what they're saying, first of all, 200 million in the summer. Did we invest 200 million in the summer? I don't know how they got that figure
I don't know where they got it from.
Even if you include the Romero money, which fair enough, you can maybe they're including Kulusevski in that. I'm not sure what they're including, but 60 for Richarlison.
They must be including Kulusevski because they're including Porro in the January one.
Yeah. So you got 60 for Richarlison. You've got 20 for Spence. That's 80. You've got 15 for Udogie. 95. You've got 25 for Bissouma. That's 115. Or 130. You've got Bissouma. Perisic was a free. Forster was a free. Who else you got? And then Romero.
Longley on loan. Perisic for free.
Yeah. And then you got Romero.
Richarlison.
I said Richarlison. And then you got Romero for 42 or whatever it was. So that takes it to about
but the thing is, if you're gonna add Romero into that, you can't add Porro into the January one. Romero was last summer, the summer before, a year ago. I know it was a loan and an option to buy, but still, like, if you're willing to commit that money, surely it goes on that summer's budget.
I'm saying,
and Kulusevski will be previous January.
If they're going to say we're dealing in facts, they said over 200 million pounds in their statement. I'm looking at Transfermarkt. I know it's not the most reliable, but they have the figures at 177 million euros, and that's including the Romero deal.
Right.
So I don't get where they get over 200 million pounds from for that figure. And when it comes to, I would argue as well, when it comes to big money deals that haven't worked, I would argue that's just as much the owner's fault and the lack of planning than it is the players themselves. Like, we look at Ndombele and Lo Celso, they were bought for a very attacking manager like Pochettino. They were bought for an offensive style of play, and they were bought for a different system. Now, you signed them for big money. Yes, they haven't worked out, and you can say, and you could argue you could very well argue, look, we spent money on Ndombele, Lo Celso. They haven't worked out, and it's not our fault that they've kind of been cast aside by managers who are at the football club. But you gave Pochettino 12 games to work with them, right? Pochettino barely had an opportunity, in all honesty. Lo Celso was injured for most of it, and Ndombele, I think he used a handful of games before Pochettino got sacked. So you spent big money on a player for a specific manager. You then sack that manager and bring in a player who plays a completely different way in a completely different system, and you expect it to work, and you expect the players just to fit it. And clearly we can tell that Lo Celso and Ndombele are not as suited to that kind of football as they would have been to maybe a Pochettino. So I would argue that as much as the players have failed, we failed the players as well when bringing them in, and that was down to the hierarchy. What was the planning in bringing in Mourinho when thinking about those players? Was there any planning?
No planning.
And then you think about having players like even recently, like Brian Hill, people like that. We have failed Brian Hill as much as Brian Hill hasn't been good enough for us. Where was the planning when it comes to what kind of manager would suit having young players and bring in these kind of players when you're spending 22 million on Brian Hill? Was there any planning from the hierarchy, or was it just it would have to just try and fit square pegs into round holes, that kind of thing? So I think when it comes to backing managers and things like that, I think the hierarchy do have a lot to answer for when it comes to a strategic planning between the club and the management and playing staff, and there being a cohesive communication and everyone being on the same page. I don't think that's been the case.
And what have we always said about the Tottenham board, right? They're not proactive, they're reactive. They always just spend money when they know that they really have to. They don't ever spend money from a position of a power of strength. And when you're looking at the last 2-3 years of spending, that's exactly what they've done. They know we've been in the complete shit. World-class managers have come in and said they're in the complete shit, so they've panicked and spent money. If they want to talk pure facts, let's talk about transfer windows then. Let's talk about what's been going on since the 17-18 season. The season before that, we brought in Son and Toby Alderweireld, and they were the last two that really impacted the first team. Summer after, we spent 30 million on Moussa Sissoko and who else was it? 30 million on Moussa Sissoko. Even that window's irrelevant anyway, because it was a shit show of a window. The next window, they brought in absolutely nobody. The next window after that, we brought in... 1 second. Trying to get the facts up here for you. The next window after that, it was the summer that you're talking about. Tanguy Ndombele, Ryan Sessegnon, Giovanni Lo Celso, Jack Clark, Steven Bergwijn in January. All of them are gone right now.
No defenders in there as well. We knew we needed a big improvement in the back.
Yeah, and Jedson Fernandez as well, by the way. All of those players are gone right now. Every single one of them, and most of them have gone on loan because we can't get transfer fees in for them. So that's one summer. Summer after that,
oh God,
we brought in Sergio Reguilon, Matt Doherty, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Joe Rodon, Carlos Vinicius in January, Joe Hart, Gareth Bale. None of those players are at the club anymore, apart from Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. And again, most of those clubs, we've just ripped up Matt Doherty's contract. Giovanni Lo Celso, we left on loan that year. Sergio Reguilon.
And you also, by the way, you look at that summer. Apart from maybe Reguilon, where you say I think at the time he was a good signing, and I think he was a top left back, and he probably wasn't a signing where we only spent because he came about. Højbjerg, 1 year left in his contract. Matt Doherty, I think he was a contract running down, or we can get him for fairly cheap. Joe Rodon was after the window had closed, and we had run out of centre back options because we failed to get one. Carlos Vinicius, we only got him because we could get him on loan, and we didn't have to have a big outlay for him. Gareth Bale, fair enough, we got him on loan and spent the money, but clearly I think we were hoping he would be. I think he was pretty good at Tottenham, but he was. I think maybe that excitement of bringing him in clouded how poor that window was. And now retrospectively, you're giving Mourinho those kind of tools to compete with the rest of the league, and at the end of the day, they just weren't good enough. Though those players, and a lot of them were not. I don't see at the beginning of the window like Mourinho going, I want Matt Doherty, I want Carlos Vinicius, I want Joe Rodon. I don't think Mourinho. I think Mourinho was probably given those options, and they were like, Mourinho was probably like, I want a centre back, I want a right back, and I want a striker, and they were like looking for the market for opportunities for those players, and that's what that screams to me.
And you're talking about 4 summer windows in a row where either we've spent money completely wrong, brought in the complete wrong players that none of them are here to see the day right now, apart from Pierre and Højbjerg, or we didn't bring anyone in at all. And how is that all right for a team of Tottenham's level, where a couple of years before that we were at the top fighting for league titles, we were getting to semi-finals of the FA Cup, we were on a good path.
And I think, and to be honest, like when it comes to like the amount of money we spend, I think they may have a point where they say, look, we do spend money. That's fair enough. But I think the main reason for that, for me, is if you buy cheap, you buy twice. And that case in point, Kyle Walker, we sold him for 50 million. And now you could say, they could very well argue, look, we have spent 120 million on right back since he's left. We've spent money. But it's like, well, you spent cheap. That's why you keep having to buy more and more and more right backs, because every single time you buy cheap right backs and they're not up to scratch, and then you keep up to buying again, and then you end up with a total amount which is much more than you should really have had to spend on that position, because you don't actually go for someone who maybe you don't actually just spend 30-40 million on a right back and say, okay, this is going to be our right for the next 5 years. You try and get a cheap deal, someone who's undervalued in the market. You try and get a deal which could suit your financials, and then you end up having to buy more and more right backs because each one isn't good enough. And that's the case in point of that figure, 500 million. They can look, that's fair enough. They can say, look, we do spend money. It's 500 million we spent in the past 4 windows, and that is a substantial amount of money.
How much?
But because of how they approach transfers, that figure shouldn't even have to be that high.
How much of that 500 million is them trying to scramble against their own mistakes? How much of it?
A lot of it.
What, probably over half? Maybe even more? You know? So it's a complete disgrace. It's a complete disgrace. And this board are so arrogant. It's unbelievable. No culpability being taken whatsoever.
There's a bit of culpability. There's mistakes at this level will leave a financial and sporting impact for future seasons. We have felt this financial impact of supporting player purchases which have not worked out as hoped. And we have taken steps to improve this area of operation. So there's a bit of culpability, not that much. I would argue that a lot of the players haven't worked out. For example, the big ones like Ndombele and Lo Celso is much to blame for them, how they've handled the management, the footballing side of things, as it is the players themselves not being up to scratch. But I also think a lot of it is just Tottenham trying to give a manager not necessarily what he needs to fill a role, but just an opportunity of something that comes up in the market in the position he wants, and them doing that as opposed to scouting players specifically for the role that we need and signing those specific players.
Yeah, it's like just lazy scouting, really. It's like, oh, we need a right back. All right, Matt Doherty's been good for the past year. Let's get him in, instead of like actually scouting the needs of the team.
I don't think it's scouting. I think it's opportunities that present them. I think the agent probably came to him.
There's no scouting whatsoever then. There's just opportunities.
There probably is scouting, but I don't think they're utilising it. Like, I think, for example, Matt Doherty, I reckon what happened is, like, I'm just speculating, but I reckon this is probably the scenario. Mourinho goes to the board, I want a right back. The board probably put out feelers looking for right backs, and George Mendes, who's the agent of Doherty, probably goes up to him, look, Wolves are looking to get rid of him. He's got 12 months left in his contract. You can probably get him for 12 million you've put in a bid. And they go, well, 12 million for a right back? Yeah, why not? Let's go for that. Instead of actually using their scouting network to develop, to look at the talent who they really believe could fill that position for many years.
Wasn't that summer as well, the summer that George Mendes was getting in bed with Levy a bit and getting in bed with Tottenham, and we took quite a few of his clients that summer.
Yeah, I think so.
Or in the January as well, because I think Carlos Vinicius was his client as well. I can't remember who else.
There's a few of them. So anyway, I'm just saying, if we're talking in facts, they need to get their facts right as well. So they're right. And I think just in general, to sum up the point, they're right when they say they spent money, but I don't think they're right when they say just because they spend the money, it means they've battened their managers, because I think they've gone about spending the money completely the wrong way. And the way they act with managers as well after spending money is also contributing to the problem.
And like I've said it time and time again, backing your manager is not solely down to spending money. That's not what backing your manager is. You can spend 500 million on players. It doesn't mean that those are the players that your manager wants and your manager has identified, and those are going to be the players that fit the system that your manager plays. That's just the scattergun approach and buying in players to and just see what fits, a completely randomized approach. Backing your manager is bringing in players specifically for a system that your manager wants to play and buying the key players in those areas. If you can't get your best option, get your second best option, or you wait until the next summer to get your best option. But it's not using a scattergun approach, spending a lot of money and just buying random players. That's not what backing your manager is.
Yeah, I agree. Next one that says, next question, are you satisfied with player recruitment in recent transfer windows and with the performance of the youth teams and the development and supply of younger players through to the first team? Are there any plans to improve this? They just said, answered above. We are excited by the young talents we have at the academy. We have always ensured a clear pathway for youth to progress to the first team along with development system that includes strategic loans. In respect of new young players, Judson Sup-Bell is a great addition to our under-21s. I believe the club can be doing more to be developing our young players. I think we let a lot of talent leave without having a proper opportunity. Case in point, Noni Madueke, who's now a £35 million player for Chelsea, which we had on our books and we've let him slip through our fingers. I think that we don't do enough to get. We do send players out on loan, but I think we don't do enough to give opportunities for them in when we feel like they're ready for the first team, and maybe we have other wrong priorities when it comes to getting these young players minutes on the pitch to help their development. And I think a lot of the time we end up not giving them the chance. They end up getting either stagnate or they end up getting frustrated and leave, and that's led to very few players. Like we got Ollie Skip, we got Kane, Tanganga's there, but
Tanganga's a point in where we failed. I think Tanganga is a case in point of where we haven't done him the justice to really break into that first team. We haven't even given him a loan spell to go out and get minutes consistently. We've asked him just to be a backup and fill in here and there whenever needed. I think Tanganga, we've done him a disservice in his development, in my opinion.
Yeah, we should have sent him out on loan a lot sooner than we have, in my opinion. Give him proper game time. And I think a lot of Alfie Devine could do with a loan deal right now.
It was interesting because we were listening to the Extra Inch on the way in, and they were making some really good points about Alfie Devine, saying this guy he's ready for men's football, whether it be obviously in the lower leagues, and we're just keeping him around here, keeping him in the under 23s. And not aiding his development whatsoever, pretty much.
They were claiming we're doing it to fulfill a homegrown, so that if he's on the way to fulfilling a homegrown quota because you have to train at a club for 4 years. And we're prioritising that over his development as a player, and that maybe is not the most well-advised thing to do. And that shows where the priorities are in the club right now. And I think we could be doing a lot more for youth development and their pathway into the first team right now. So
it's like they use the Harry Kane example about the youth development. I mean, how long are they going to live off that? I know obviously it's an unbelievable example because he's become one of the best strikers in the world, but how long are they going to live off that? You need to keep bringing players through, not just rely on Harry Kane and that's it.
Exactly. As long as Kane's there, they're still going to have that perception, they bring players through. But apart from Kane's now been the first team for how long? 2014 he broke in, so now 9 years nearly. And since then, it's really just been there's Winks and Skip, and Tanganga. I mean, very few.
Yeah.
Very few have really had proper opportunities.
And like when Pochettino was here, it looked like we had players coming through the youth. We had the Ryan Masons, the Harry Winkses,
Edwards even, he was there.
but none of them materialised. Is that down to the players not being good enough, or is that down to Spurs and the way they handle their development? What's that down to?
Why they didn't make it through, I think it's probably more of the way we've handled it, I would say. But as well, I guess some players just simply aren't good enough, but I think a lot of it is down to how we handle these young players.
Like Harry Winks, like what happened to him? Because he was such a good prospect. When he first broke into the team under Pochettino, he was brilliant. He really was.
Yeah,
brilliant.
that's not to do with handling with academy players though, because he got his chance. He was a first team player.
What's it down to?
Why he fell off?
Yeah.
Injuries and then also we stopped playing a possession-based football, which we were under Poch, and that probably hurt him as well.
So it is down to the board then, what you're saying then, because the keep constant changing of philosophies.
Oh, that is, yeah, but that hurts our first team. I'm saying, in terms of the development of players to get into a position where they're playing first team football. Winks is a different example. He got to that stage already. I'm talking about even getting
I get
to that stage.
But what he gets to that stage and suddenly we change our philosophy. I mean,
No, I agree. Sacking Pochettino and not having a philosophy in place for that, and just going from Mourinho and Conte, and then not really backing them to actually give them the tools to seriously compete, has led to the situation where it's a very complete muddled approach.
And let's be honest, right? When a club has a philosophy, that needs to be taught from development upwards. It's not just a first team thing that has that philosophy. It needs to be brought through the academy so they know what they're doing. I mean, look at Barcelona is obviously the obvious point. Ajax is probably the obvious point where a philosophy is ingrained in these players from a very young age. How can you ingrain a philosophy in a very young age if the club don't even know what philosophy and what direction they want to go in?
They don't have a philosophy. It's all just talk. There's no philosophy at this club. Let's go to the last question. Does the club have a plan for the further investment to ensure that the club remains competitive on the pitch in the face of substantial additional investment by other Premier League clubs? Is the club closer to securing a naming rights provider? Is there a plan for further investment from ENIC or from other potential investors or buyers? They said answered in part above. In response to the latter part of the, I guess they're saying in part, they're saying the goal is to make money and reinvest it. In response to the latter part of the question, which was, is the club close to securing a naming rights deal? All our conversations with third parties are confidential with specific reference to naming rights. We are clear that any deal has to be right for the club, notwithstanding we currently have our own name proudly on the stadium receiving global recognition. Financial sustainability has been fundamental to how the club is run, and our aim has always been to combine financial sustainability of the club with remaining competitive on the pitch. The ENIC investment was timely and critical as we emerged from the pandemic and sought to stay competitive on the pitch. We are ever conscious of the new capital injection into the club, with which is player transfer spending increased significantly. We should be mindful, however, of the implications of the changes to the governance of the game, which will compel greater sustainability and FFP. Major changes have been introduced in Europe around FFP regulations, including a newly launched UEFA financial sustainability rules, the full impact of which will be felt from season 25-26. They are based on 3 pillars: solvency, stability, and cost control, and clubs will have 3 seasons to adjust to them. Many expect that these new rules will be a game changer for the sport, which should allow for the possibility of even tighter regulations. That's the rule. I don't know about these rules. That's going to come in 25-26. All I know is they obviously brought in FFP ages ago now, and it hasn't really changed that much. It's only really changed, in a weird way, it's changed a lot for like clubs like Everton and other clubs who maybe don't have unlimited budget, but then there are teams who just do, and seemingly with impunity can just spend however much they want.
Man City found in breach of FFP. What happened to them?
They originally got ejected from Champions League, but then they appealed it and only just got a fine instead, which they don't bother. Chelsea seem to have just found a loophole in FFP. They could just spend however much they want without being in fear of breaching FFP.
Tell me there's FFP when a team have spent 600 million in one window, in a January window as well.
Yeah. so they don't seem to be bothered by it. They seem to be found a way around it. We'll see what these rules bring. Maybe if they are a game changer, we'll be in a better position than a lot of other teams. I don't know what these rules are. If anyone can tell me in the comments or whatever, if what they've heard about these potential new rules, but nothing really. Again, they were never going to say anything about any minority investment in this answer. Of course, they were never going to say anything about naming rights. So
sounds like in that answer, they're just literally just hiding behind these new rules that are going to come in 3 years' time. Pretty much, nothing said there.
Yeah, I don't know what these rules are. We'll see. I guess that's a wait and see kind of thing. All I would say though, if they are tied to restrictions, then we would be in a good position because we are run very well financially. But whether that means we will use that position to our advantage or not is another thing.
Yeah, look, I'm sure once these rules get kicked in, I don't know what the rules are either, but I'm sure once these rules get kicked in, all the big teams, Manchester United, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, will all fall in line with what they need to do to be a top team, and the top teams will stay as the top teams. You know, if you wanna go be a top and spend quite a bit of money like every other club does on talent. And you get there, which we don't do. We want to do the first step, and we want to let teams just keep jumping us. It's not good enough that we're at this stage, they're giving us these answers, and we're still playing Eric Dyer and Ben Davis and Davinson Sanchez at the back. Yeah,
I mean, that tells you all you need to know when you look at the big holes still in the squad. You tell me that he's like these players have been problems for many years in this squad, and what no manager has wanted to upgrade of them. We just haven't been able to do it for so many years.
And you can't tell me that after selling Kyle Walker, we've brought in four right backs or something like that, spent close to 100 million on them, and then you go and spend 45 million on Pedro Porro, where you could have just spent 50 million on a right back to replace Kyle Walker, and that was job done. In fact, we've spent 5 years, copious amounts of money on terrible right backs to get to this stage where we're at now. It's not good enough. Left back, Danny Rose, since he left, yeah, fine. He's brought in left backs that we thought were going to do the business. None of them have done the business. We still don't have a proper left back until Udogie comes in next summer. I mean, the points of all these positions stand so regularly throughout the time that Enoch have been here at Spurs. It's
and if
consistent theme.
And I guess the board will keep pointing to Ndombele and Lo Celso, but I would just say, if you're going to spend big money on two players like that and invest heavily in them, you can't just treat them as if that these are players which you've bought two players for an offensive possession-based system, and then within 10 games you get rid of the manager for a completely different style of play, which clearly isn't going to suit them as well as it would under potentially Pochettino. And that switch in philosophy without a plan is what's caused a lot of these signings to fail.
And it's a complete lack of understanding in football, to be honest. Like, how can you own a football club? How can you run a football club for 22 years and not know that certain players suit certain philosophies, and certain players will strive under some managers, and then when you change the philosophy, that you just expect the players just to get on and do the same job? It's not how football works.
And I remember I take a quote from for my sins for Arsene Wenger. He was talking about the development of young players, and he said in football from what he understands, what he can see from the development of players, about 80% of players are good because they fit the system that you play. They're very much like based around being in good system. You need them in good structures for them to perform well. And then there's 20% of players who can just play in any system because they're just that good. They can adjust to anything. And they're like, for example, someone like Mbappe, he can just play in any system. It doesn't really matter. He'll be effective. But most players do need to fit them in. You do need to play them in a certain way in certain systems for them to be effective. And the board and the hierarchy just don't understand this, and they're just happy to chop and change and thinking will have little effect on the playing staff when that's not how it works.
I would say though, in their defence a little bit, that since Paratici has come to the club, I think the recruitment has got a lot better. I think nobody can say it hasn't, but those years pre-Paratici, whilst Pochettino was here, has just been a complete shit show in terms of recruitment and where our money's been spent, if our money's been spent in some of those years. But you got to say, you got to give them, maybe not benefit of the doubt, but you got to give them something in terms of saying that since Paratici has come in, the recruitment has been a lot better.
Yeah.
So that's something, isn't it? So it's something that is being improved on.
Yeah, I think so. But even since yeah, no, for sure. Like people like Romero, Bentancur, Kulusevski, I think hopefully Porro. I think in the summer we made some smart deals, but in like Richarlison, Basuma, I like these kind of transfers. But like for example, people like Emerson signed on deadline day when he was just an opportunity, which because we were looking for a right back and we couldn't really find one, so he came available, we just went for him. Someone like Brian Hill, we signed him without really a pathway for him to. I think we've dealt with Brian Hill terribly.
Oh. The Brian Hill thing's an interesting one because I think he was a very good signing for us, but he wasn't a signing that we should have signed to get rid of a first-team player to bring him in. He's a signing that we should have brought in to bleed through, you know what I mean? Not just someone to come in and spend that much money on him is crazy. 21 million plus Eric Lamela is crazy talk for Brian Hill. Brian Hill should have come in and be kind of developed up, gone out on a few loans. He has gone out on a few loans, but proper loans for him where he would get used to English football. We kind of brought him in as a first team player when he's nowhere near ready to be a first team player.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. And I think our treatment of him has been really bad, I think, as well, since he's come to the club. So I think the recruitment has definitely gotten better. But it's still no, it has gone better. It has gone better since Paratici. It's still not perfect, but it has gone better. And we need to make sure that the recruitment is in line with overarching plan and philosophy, and that's still lacking. I feel sometimes.
You're saying now we've started this recruitment structure under Paratici, and we're bringing in these kind of players. If Conte does leave in the summer, and we do bring in a Pochettino, does that undo all the hard work that Paratici has done?
No. Not all the hard work, because I think a lot of the players I think for me there are a few for the players who I think who need to play in a back five for me to be effective. I think Dyer, Davis, Sessegnon, Perisic, who else is there? I said, Doherty's gone now, but he was one of them, Doherty. Who else probably needs to play in a back five? I mean, apart from them, I think everyone else could adjust.
And all of them were happy to go, really, anyway.
Yeah, those are the only players for me. Maybe Sanchez, I don't want him in a back four either. Like, apart from those players, I think everyone else can adjust to playing in a back four system with midfield. So I don't think it undoes all the good work just because Conte might leave. Would
you put Bissouma in there? Well, I know we don't play with a middle three, but he can only play in a middle three at the moment. Would you put him in there?
He can only play in a middle three, yes, but you can do that in a back four. 4-3-3.
Yeah. But I mean, also Pochettino though can come in and play a back five. We've seen him deploy a back five us many a time.
It's not his favourite position, formation, but he has done it. When we beat Chelsea at the Lane on that famous night in January 2017, he played a back five. He's done it on a definitely. He's shown we can do it. He can be a bit flexible, but definitely four at the back is his preferred, I think. But we can do it.
All right. So what's the takeaway then from this? This statement from the board?
I think the statement. I think they make some good points, but overall, I think it comes off as a bit arrogant. A bit. They sound a bit pissed off, and I think as well they still don't understand why they're going wrong when they're going wrong, and they don't understand their own failings and what they are doing wrong. And I think that statement tells me that they think that they're not doing anything wrong and they're doing everything perfectly, and it's just unlucky, and it's just like things have gone against them when they've actively been the architects of why things have started to go wrong for Tottenham, and they need to take responsibility for that. There's only a bit of responsibility taking for transfers not panning out, but I think they don't understand that they are partly or a lot responsible for why those transfers haven't panned out, and they haven't. I guess it wasn't part of the questions, but they didn't answer anything about Conte's future or anything like that, whether they want him to stay on or what the future looks like. They just said that he wants to win trophies like us. So I think, and when it comes to the financials, look, no one's really had complaints about Tottenham making money or the financials. So then bring that up about how proud they are. That's fine. All right, we make money, we do all right for ourselves, but it's about how we spend it, what we spend it on, the strategy of the football club going forward on the pitch. Footballing matters, and for me, it doesn't seem like it's a priority for the club, and it just seems to be secondary, and that's my biggest problem, and it still is after that statement.
So, I mean, after that statement, no answers really. We don't have any more answers after that statement than we had before that statement, let's be honest.
No, there's nothing brand new there. The only thing is, I guess, there's something new, maybe with the new football rules coming in 25-26, you can argue that's something, but they just seem pissed off by that. Especially the answer to number 2 seems very annoyed.
There's a tone in there, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a very annoyed tone, for sure.
And I mean,
let's deal in facts. They said when they said we spent over 200 million in the summer.
And like, if they're addressing an already disgruntled fan base, and even if they do have a certain tone about them, and they are pissed off with us asking the question, surely they would put out a message that doesn't have that tone to it to save a bit more face. I mean, it's ridiculous, that tone that they've used in this statement. So arrogant from the board, so arrogant, but. What can we do? There's nothing we can do, is there?
Nothing. Well, that's the statement. That's what we have to go off, and we have to hope for a better second half of the season. But there's nothing really that they've done to alleviate my problems.
Yeah, agreed. So that is the response from the Tottenham Hotspur board against to the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust regarding the 4 questions they asked. But now let's talk football, and let's get into the Man City match preview. Tottenham against Manchester City at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 4:30 kickoff on Sunday. We could see the likes of Pedro Porro making his debut, but when you look at the head-to-head between the two clubs, is that the right head-to-head?
Yeah. If you include the cup final, yeah, it is.
Oh, right, okay. So we've lost three out of our last 5 games against them. Obviously, 4 of those have been away from home. So we've done really well against them at home, though, at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I think we've won our last 3 games against them at home.
Yeah, and they haven't scored. I think ever since we moved to the stadium, we've played.
Have they not scored in the stadium? They did in the Champions League. No, they didn't. They missed that penalty. Yeah,
they haven't scored. They've missed a couple penalties in the home games, and we've had. So we have a very good record at home. Last 3 games not at home we have lost, but we do have a very good record when it comes to playing them at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But looking at that, it looks like out of our last 5 games against them, only one of them has been at home, which is very strange.
Yeah.
I think is that right? I think that is right, because the season under Mourinho, we played them. We lost 3-0 at the Etihad. We lost in the cup final. We then beat them first game of the season, beat them at the Etihad, and lost just a few weeks ago at the Etihad. So I think that is right, actually.
Yeah, it is right.
Yeah, the head-to-head.
Yeah.
We've played 1 game at home in our last 5 against City.
Yeah, it's mad to think about it. Obviously, there's cup games in there as well. But in our last few home games against them, we've won 1-0, won 2-0, won 2-0, won 1-0. So we've won our last 4 games against Manchester City at home without conceding a goal. The prior game to that was a 1-0 loss against Manchester City at Wembley, I think it was, when Riyad Mahrez scored in the first 5 minutes or so. But our record against Man City is good. And what is it about Tottenham that always seem to get a good result against Man City, especially at home?
I think, first of all, definitely a bit of luck, especially under Mourinho. We had penalty misses and things like that. We've had a bit of luck going. I remember there was one game they missed a penalty, they then missed an open goal, and it was this flurry of chances, and then Zinchenko got sent off, and we ended up winning the game 2-0. I think it was Bergwijn's debut.
Zinchenko, yellow card.
Yeah, that was Bergwijn's debut. So we've had some luck against them. I remember the following season against the following 2 games, to be fair. We played pretty well. We won 2-0, and then under Nuno in his first game, we actually probably deserved that win as well. We played quite well. Played and won 1-0. Haven't played at home against him since then, so we'll see how Conte does in a home game against Man City. Our record of this season against the top six is worrying, to say the least. So we'll see how that pans out. But I think I don't know. We just seem to have their number in the home games. They can't seem to score. Oh,
Still live for me.
are we still live? One sec, guys. I think no, we're still live. We're still live. So I'm not sure why we keep getting the rubber of the green when it comes to Man City at home, but I think definitely in previous years has been a lot of luck. But we'll see how we perform under Conte. So it'll be interesting to see how deep we are, if we do press high, if we do attack a bit more, or is it just going to be a job of defending really deep and hoping for a few transitions and counter attacks.
Let's get into the form. In terms of the form, it's interesting because Man City are second in the league, 5 points behind Arsenal. And there's a narrative that Man City not performing as well as maybe they should be, which I think is probably right. 3 wins and 2 losses in their last 5 games, exactly the same as Spurs. They've scored 9 and conceded 6, while we scored 7 and conceded 6. But what is it about Man City this season? They just don't seem as at it as maybe they should be, as what we've seen over the past couple of years.
I mean, they're still on course for, what are they on? How many points are they on? They're
45.
45 after 19 games.
Yeah.
Of course.
20 games, yeah.
20 games. Okay, so I guess there's been a tiny bit of a dip when you think about they usually get over 95 points. They're on course for about 90 points at the moment. So it's not like there's been a major dip. I think they just set such high standards that when maybe they have a bit of they don't win a few games, people say they had a massive drop-off, but I don't think there's been a big drop-off in my opinion. They've been a bit of a drop-off maybe, but maybe it's trying to just settle it. Haaland, I mean, it's hard to say he's settling inside when he has 25 goals, but there have been some games he's been anonymous, I guess. They obviously lost to Man United recently, and they drew at home to Everton. So they've had a couple of games, so maybe they've definitely been a bit off it. And as Pep said, when you've won 4 out of 5 league titles, the hunger sometimes can drop, and sometimes you take things for granted, you take wins for granted, and maybe that aggression is not in the side as much anymore as maybe it was when you're going for those first few league titles when you haven't won in a while. And you can definitely see that when Arsenal, that hunger's 100% there, and that's what Pep's saying. So I definitely think that is a big element to it. I don't think it's anything necessarily to do with style of play or new players. I just think it's that hunger that sometimes can missing when you're winning titles so easily. But look, if they've got that lack of hunger and still have 45 points after 20 games, if they can get it back, they're just going to be flying. So I'm not worried.
We need them to get it back. And
I'm not worried about City at all, to be honest.
When we played them away from home a couple of weeks ago, there was a lot of conversations about, do we even want Spurs to win this game with Arsenal 5 points clear? Is that still in your mind for this game? No,
I think we gave them the win now. We've already given them 3 points, so we need to take it back now. I think we need the 3 points in this game. I think we need that good feeling back at Spurs. We need a big result against a good team as well. We haven't had one yet this season. That's really hurt us. So I would say it's not. It was a bit in my mind last game, but we were 2-0 up. We had we played one the first half, then gave it away. But we can't afford to do that again.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into the Man City predicted lineup for this game. If you can bring that up on screen. Stones out of this game. Foden's a doubt, but I think he will be available for the game. 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, whichever way you want to look at it. Ederson in goal. Lewis, Akanji, Diaz, Ake, Gundogan, Rodri, De Bruyne, Grealish, Mahrez, and Haaland. Let's talk about Rico Lewis, because Cancelo's gone now, which was much to the surprise of everyone on deadline day. Gone to Bayern Munich, already got an assist on his first game. And we heard it's because of the emergence of Rico Lewis. And I've been really impressed with what he's done. And it seems like he's very versatile, can play in a number of positions. How impressed have you been with Rico?
Yeah, he's been brilliant, I have to say. He's taken that like Cancelo role, like a duck to water, like that, a role where he comes in, plays in midfield. His build-up play is fantastic. I think Rico Lewis is super impressive for his young age. He's so mature as well. He's fairly strong in the challenge. He's still got obviously a lot of physical development to be done. He's still young, still just 18 years of age. But there's a reason why they were happy. Man City were happy to let Cancelo go, and it's because this guy looks like he's the real deal moving forward, and also being a academy product, he has that maybe bit of bite and a bit of fight that Pep's looking for, and maybe Cancelo's lost it when he's not been in the team and stuff like that. So you've got to say Rico Lewis has been absolutely phenomenal.
It's mad to me because you're talking about one of the best players in European football in João Cancelo, literally. How amazing was he? Yeah. How amazing was he last season? Team of the year in the Premier League, one of the best performers in the league, and ever since he's joined Man City, he's been that. Something surely must have happened there. We heard there was maybe a rift with him and Pep, but that was all cold water was blown on that by both of the parties. Surely something had to have happened there.
Well, he wasn't playing in the World Cup as well, you know what I mean? Like, it's not clearly, I don't know if it's just a him and Pep thing. When the World Cup, he was not picked over Diego Dallo. I don't know whether he's had a drop in form or and maybe he's it hurt his ego to not be out the team for in place of Rico Lewis. Maybe he just felt like he needed a change of scenery. I don't know. I don't really know the situation, but it's an odd one, 100%, because he's been so effective in his build-up play, his chance creation. He's been brilliant. But when you're from Man City's point of view, they just have so much money. Like, if a player doesn't want to be there, there's just no point keeping them. You can replace them. You can do whatever you want. So when you're a club like Tottenham and stuff, when a player doesn't want to be there, it's a different situation because you can't necessarily just replace them so easily, like a Harry Kane or whatever. But for a team like Man City, who they can get anyone they want, players, there's probably a queue of players lining up to join them. They can spend how much they want as well. If a player doesn't want to be there, let him go. No point.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Bring up the ones to watch. Obviously, Erling Haaland, 25 goals, 3 assists. And Riyad Mahrez, who started to perform in this second half of the season. I mean, hardly got a look in first half, didn't he, Riyad? And he's showing his true colours now in his second half of the season. Completely tore Perisic a new one at the Etihad a couple of weeks ago. But Erling Haaland, man, 25 goals, 3 assists in 20 starts. I mean... yeah. We've never seen anything like that in the Premier League. And you're looking at Harry Kane right now with, 16 goals or something. What's he got?
Yeah, 16
goals in 23 starts or whatever it may be. Well, 21 starts. And no one's talking about Harry Kane just because of how good Erling Haaland has been. I mean, Harry Kane is on course for a 30-goal season.
And it's almost like just gone under the radar how impressive that is, because Haaland is on course like a 50-goal season, which is ridiculous, the number of goals. But also, in a way, it puts into context how ridiculous people like Ronaldo and Messi are, because they consistently were getting like 50 goals a season, and like it was just so normalised. And now like Haaland's getting that, and it's like, oh my God, he's a god. It's like, well, Messi, Ronaldo literally did that every year.
Not in the Premier League, though.
Not in the Premier League, but still, La Liga's still pretty good level.
It is a good level, but the Premier League is a level above, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've never seen anyone get those numbers in the Premier League.
No,
ever.
I think the record for a 38-game season is 33 goals, which was Mo Salah. So, he's 8 goals away from that. He's going to absolutely... He could probably, in a couple of weeks' time, obliterate it if he really wanted to. It's crazy the amount of goals he's getting. He obviously, it helps when he has the best chance-creating team in the world behind him to feed him. He gets to be pretty... Like, how many goals of those have just been laid on a plate for him?
Oh, so many.
Like, so many just taps him in. But
that's what we were saying about Harry Kane, right? If he was going to join Man City, he would break all kind of records within the season.
Yeah, I think so. Would he got 25 in 20? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think he would have.
I think he would have got like... I think those assist numbers would be higher, and I think the goal numbers would be slightly less, in my opinion.
I'm not sure. Imagine that De Bruyne-Kane link-up. Imagine that.
Would be unbelievable.
Imagine that. I think Harry Kane would get just as many goals as Erling Haaland, and
I think the reason I don't think he would is because Haaland is just so relentless with his physicality, just getting in those positions time and time again. Kane is just I think Kane, a younger Kane would. I don't think this Kane would. I think this Kane is a more refined player, and he's not all about just physically getting in those positions every single time. He's more about general link-up play, being an all-round player. I think he would probably be more effective than Haaland. Doesn't mean necessarily he would get as many goals, in my opinion.
It's mad, Haaland, because sometimes you're watching Man City and you don't even notice him, and then he scores a hat-trick. He's he hadn't had a touch for the whole first half, and suddenly you're just like bang, 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 and it's a hat-trick.
He can just explode at any time. His pace, his strength, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Always a threat. Even if he's out of the game, he's a threat. It's unbelievable how good he is.
Can't take your eye off him for a second.
But but
he's also a player that, how many goals has he really made for himself? Apart, I can't think of anywhere he's just picked up the ball and dribbled past a player and
I think
scored.
there was one I remember. I can't remember who it was against, when he took it past the player and finished it in the back of the net. But it is few and far between.
Vast majority either being literally 2-on-1s where it's just squared across the face goal and it's a tap in, or crosses in the box, or through balls where he's run on things. Very, very rarely does he pick up the ball with maybe his back to goal, turns and shoots or anything like that. So, but when you can't argue with 25 goals in that amount of time. And Mahrez, last 6 games, 3 goals, 4 assists. He might be one of the form players in the league right now over the last 6 games. He's really turning on the style, and he's always had the talent to do that. We know how good Mahrez is, and when he's in form, he is very difficult to stop, like we saw last week.
It's just crazy the amount of talent you can have in your squad, not even to consider him for the first half of the season.
Yeah, it's madness.
A bit smart though for someone of his age, not playing first half of the season and coming in and exploding second half of the season.
Yeah, why not?
Not bad, is it?
Not bad at all. That's what Man City can do with their talent. It's incredible.
Yeah, and all right, let's move on to the game on Sunday. Are we thinking Pedro Porro is going to get his debut?
No, I don't. I think as much as I think he'll probably get a run out, I think he'll probably come on as sub. I do think we're going to go for Emerson. I think Emerson's had a couple of good games as well, so there's maybe respect for his form. He had also played well against Man City last time. Also, this kind of game suits Emerson a bit more than other games. So I do think Emerson keeps his place. I think, to be honest, the whole team, I think it's going to be a very similar team to what we played at the Etihad. Whether Perisic keeps his place or not is going to be the big one. But I think other than that, I can't see too many changes, and we're just going to hope for the less mistakes we made.
And obviously, the Sonny question as well comes up again, because when we went to the Etihad, obviously, it was a question mark whether he would play or not, because he's on terrible form and he's not showing anything like the Sonny that we know and love. The game against Preston, we saw him back at it, albeit it was against Preston. Obviously we have to persist with him in this game, but are you more confident now that he can affect the game, in which we know he can?
I think I think I can't say that based off one game against Preston, where there was, he was much easier for him to find pockets of space. He was much easier for him to be facing the goal and turning.
But we know he's going to get space against Man City.
Yeah, no, I would start him in this game, because when he's got 2 goals in this game, you're gonna hopefully back him to find form. But in terms of a long term, the whole second half of the season, I'm confident now Sonny's back at it. I think for that point of view, it's too early to say. I would start him for this game, though, with the knowledge as well. We can have Danjuma off the bench, Richarlison off the bench. All of a sudden, if we do have options there now, coming from the sideline, so you can be more confident that even if it's a tighter game, or if we're in the lead, hopefully we can bring on players who can really affect things in the final third if the game is stretched. I felt like against Man City in the last game, we just ran out of steam. We played really well for an hour, and then once the game went 3-2, we really ran out of steam, and we couldn't really do much, and we didn't have much on the bench. I think Richarlison was just coming back from an injury. We didn't have much to change it. But now with Danjuma and Richarlison back there, we can really have a good go at them, or even on the counter. I
felt a bit differently about that game. I felt like Man City just weren't at it for the first half. And yes, we played okay, we played well. But I felt like Man City just came out for the second half with a point to prove. They flicked a switch and then completely terrorised us, completely battered us.
I think they got it to 2-2, and then there was a stage in the game we were back in it. And then we obviously missed a chance.
There was that one chance we had with the Perisic.
It was a period. It was a good 5-10 minute period. We were back in the game, and then we missed a chance. Then it led to that us missing the chance, and a minute later they scored, and then from then on it just seemed like we ran out of steam and ideas.
But you're talking about in a 45-minute period, Spurs having 5 to 10 minutes.
Correct.
I mean, that's a battering to me.
I'm not saying we didn't get battered. I'm just saying that we had a period in the game where we were back in it, and we did run out of ideas, and we seemed to run out of energy. And maybe with Danjuma and Richarlison there, we could have players who can really affect the game coming off the bench, and that's what I'm hoping. Especially if we are in the lead. Hopefully we can have players who are very good in those transitions, like Danjuma, and maybe can really hurt, or who can really help hurting Man City, unlike Sonny, who just at the moment didn't seem confident or just wasn't able to really hurt them in the transition up at the Etihad.
We need to get Son just hanging off that last shoulder on Sunday, and we need Kane to drop deep, affect the game, and really to keep sliding those balls into Heung-min Son time after time after time, because we'll get goals like that if we do that. And obviously Kulusevski will be in there helping out. But I think it's so important in this game for Kane to drop as deep as, and get in those half spaces and really affect the game like he did at the Etihad last season. We need that kind of performance on Sunday.
Yeah, but true, we do, but it's like you're saying Kane has to play 10 out of 10 basically. Yeah, and it's difficult. It's difficult to demand that, but that's what we're going to need if we're going to win.
I demand a 10 out of 10 from Harry Kane. Even 9 out of 10 will be all right. I'll take 9 out of 10 as well.
He was literally at the Etihad a 10 out of 10. It was one of the best displays I've ever seen.
It was, but look, I'm talking about just him dropping deep, getting in those half spaces and really affecting the game and playing those balls into Heung-min Son. I mean, we see him do it time and time again, but I feel like maybe recently Sonny is the one a bit further deeper and Kane is the one a bit further forward. It needs to be the other way around for us to really get the best out of both players, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything else
about the game on Sunday? I think we have a good chance. I think Man City, as much as they're always going to be Man City, I don't think they're as at it right now, although they did just win 3-0 against Wolves, and they won 1-0 against Arsenal in a game which, very even. So I'm confident we can actually get a result, not necessarily a win. I do think we can. Hopefully, there's a good feeling around the club, and also hopefully we're playing for Antonio Conte, who's coming back from his surgery. And actually, Stellini's been talking because the press is happening right now. He was asked about whether Conte will be able to be at the game, and he said we're not sure yet. We'll have to wait and see what the doctor says, but yeah, they're not sure whether Conte will be at the game yet. But hopefully. We know how to play against City. We do. We've done it enough times and got decent results where we know how we can really affect the game, and I think we can do it again on Sunday, especially in front of the home support. We usually get good results at home against City, so I'm confident we can get something, again, have a good positive performance, especially if Porro can come on and make his debut. I reckon that could also make an impact. But I'm going to go 2-2.
2-2. I'm going to stick with mine from Predict the Prem. I'm going to say 2-1 to Spurs. Not really sure why. I've got a bit of a feeling about this weekend that we can take the 3 points, as we have done in the last 4 games at home against Manchester City. I feel like Sonny should be going into this with a bit more confidence after that performance and 2 goals and 2 worldies, to be honest, especially the first one. So, like I said, if he can hang off that last shoulder and Kane can drop a bit more deep in this game, I think we'll have a big chance to take all 3 points in this game. Man City will leave a lot of space in behind. We'll have Kulusevski as well. We just need our defence to hold strong. That's going to be what wins and loses us this game, in my opinion, if our defence can hold strong.
Stellini says that Porro is available.
Yeah,
for the game.
I've just seen that. Porro is available. They always talk about his performance against us. Like that was the game that made them sign.
I thought he played really well, to be honest.
He did play really well. But look, that is our predictions. Now let's go on to BetMate. Obviously, a great game to play, fantasy game where you can win your share of £750 this weekend, which is a £5 entry. If you use our code WATT5, you can get a free £5 to play as well. But let's get into our team. So it's basically very similar rules to Fantasy Premier League, but you do get points for defensive actions as well, interceptions and tackles. So that's why I've picked this team. So let's go into my team first. I've gone for Hugo Lloris in goal because I do think both teams will score. But I think Lloris might make the more saves out of the two keepers. So I've gone for Lloris in goal. In my defence, I've gone for Rico Lewis and Pedro Porro. I think Lewis is such a high energy player. He's always full of tackles and interceptions. He can get high up the pitch as well and provide. So I've gone for Rico Lewis. I've gone for Pedro Porro on his debut. We know about debutants at Man City, so hopefully he can provide an attacking contribution if he does play. And I think he'll be at it with the interceptions as well. In the midfield, I've gone for Kevin De Bruyne as the captain and Rodrigo Bentancur alongside him. And then up front, I've gone for Kane and Erling Haaland vice captain.
I have gone for something slightly different. I've gone for Ederson in goal, Emerson and Rico Lewis at the back. I think Emerson's the one going to start. De Bruyne and Kulusevski in midfield. I think Kulusevski had a great game out the Etihad. I'm backing him to do it again this time round. And up front, Haaland and Kane, with Kane captain, hoping to break the all-time goal scorers record in this game. So I've got him captain.
I'm kind of hoping he doesn't do it this weekend, just because I want to be there when he does do it. Big shame that we're not going to be there this weekend, as we have family commitments this weekend. But look, it is what it is. We won't be at the game, and you'll have Barry and Danny in the studio with you for the watch along. So tune in for that just before 4:30 on Sunday. But thank you for everyone for joining us for the match preview. Let's start talking to some guests, and let's get on Gabby, Earth of Spurs.
Earth of Spurs.
How you doing, Gabby?
What's up, guys?
How you doing? Yeah, I'm good, man. How are you?
Not bad. It's nighttime here in Korea.
In Korea.
Yes, I remember you're based in Korea. Look, there's a lot to talk about today. Let's start off with the supporters trust and the board reaction, or the board response to the supporters trust. Is there anything that you make out of it?
I feel like the response was quite political. It was like a politician, you know. It was kind of like trying to evade the real reason, or trying to just give a response that will kind of quieten any other responses. And I just feel like the problem is, I also recently watched Welcome to Wrexham on Disney Plus, which is pretty good, and I saw how much Ryan Reynolds took out of his own pocket, and I think that's just like crazy, because this is really what's missing for us. And Daniel Levy, he does have vision and he's good with business, but that's the thing, he's a businessman, he's not a football man. He relies on he wants more of a stability, which is good, but he's not willing to put his own money. He's like, let's make a bit of profit, use that money so I don't have to use any of my money. And I think like when people get angry, then he will spend a bit of money. That may or may not be a little bit why we bought Pedro Porro. And yeah, I just feel like he's never really going to be willing to suddenly spend like a ridiculous amount of his own money, which is probably what we want, especially when teams like Chelsea and City and now Newcastle and even Arsenal are spending a lot of money. Maybe not this window for Arsenal, but in the summer. And they were prepared to buy Mudryk, which we would never even consider, because even if he would for some reason want to come to Spurs, we just wouldn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there was a bit of an arrogant tone in the response from the board. And when you're trying to get fans back on side, I mean, how are they using this arrogant tone in these 4 questions against the supporters trust? It boggles my mind.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised though, because they've been there for so long and done they've put so little and then been there for so long. I feel like I think deep down in their minds, they actually feel like our anger is misplaced and misdirected. It's like, why are you angry? We have a new stadium. It's like, yeah, you have a new stadium, but like the whole point of going forward isn't just to get a new stadium.
Yeah.
It's much, much more than that. And it's like
Success
year
on
in,
the
year
football
out.
pitch, yeah.
Yeah, and backing the managers, as you said, buying the players that the managers need. Poch went to the Champions League final, and it's just
Yeah, but Gabby, what do you say to the line where it says, we consistently see references to our perceived lack of backing for head coaches and lack of spending. It's important to deal with facts. Our spending levels quite clearly show that we have backed our footballing side. What do you think of that line?
Is that from their own pockets?
No, it's from the reinvestment from the profits we make from the club and reinvested into the club again.
There we go. Thought so. Yeah, I think they believe that because they are spending money, they can fool people into thinking, look at us, we are investing, but they're not necessarily investing. They're kind of like doing business and going forward. And to be fair, every year we are one of the clubs that are financially quite good. So there's fair enough there. We're not like in a massive debt, like if you look at Barcelona, Real Madrid, but they need to find better excuses, I think, because the supporters aren't that dumb.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. But let's talk about actual football now. Big game this weekend, Manchester City at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. How are you feeling coming into this one? Obviously, we lost 4-2 to them at the Etihad not long ago, a couple of weeks ago. Are you coming into this game feeling any different? Got any confidence for the 3 points?
Well, I was pessimistic for the other match. I predicted a 3-1 loss, and I was close, 4-2 loss. But this one, I predicted.
I bet you weren't thinking at half time.
Yeah. I was like, well, actually, when Emerson Royal scored, I could not stop laughing. I was laughing.
Me as well.
Much. Yeah, I was laughing so much. This match, I'm hoping Pedro Porro can just come in because I just literally prefer anyone to Emerson Royal. Like, he scored 1 goal in like 50 games. Come on. And I think if we can score first, we can definitely, even though we did last time, but if we can score first and have a good second half, then I think we can get a 2-1 win.
2-1 win. In terms of like comparing the team that maybe started the Etihad to what you were going to see on Sunday, how many changes would you make? Do you think it's going to be a standard team?
Pretty similar, I would say, but we do have Richarlison that can come on, who's like now a bit off, a bit back from his injury, a bit more. And Sonny, the thing about the Preston game is that I haven't seen him shooting like that for a long time. His shooting has been whack recently. And, like, as you said already, he's going to be hopefully relying on Kane's balls. He loves Kane's balls. Who doesn't? And
I love Kane's balls.
But I will. He that could give him the confidence. If he can shoot like he did against Preston, against Man City, surely he's going to get a goal and be there at the last man to get through. Lewis has done well, but I think he hopefully might get a bit cocky, like thinks he's got Sonny figured out, but he ain't seen nothing yet. He hasn't seen Sonny yet, he hasn't seen the best in him. So I think Sonny will be key. Hopefully Pedro Porro will play. Richarlison can come in. Decky scored last time. He was all right. But we are relying so much on Harry Kane this season. And as you said already, his goals have been amazing. Haaland's, a lot of his goals have been tap-ins, but he's still playing very well. But yeah, we need to stop relying on Kane and get some goals from other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully maybe Richarlison can get his first Premier League goal of the season. It's crazy to think about. We've gone crazy. This long, halfway through a season, and he still hasn't scored in the Premier League, albeit he has been injured quite a bit and not playing in his favoured position. But look, who would you start as your back three, to be honest, on Sunday?
I was literally about to say, it's our defence that is letting us down. So many teams have conceded less than us. And
yeah,
Even Everton in 19th have a better defense than us.
That's mental. That's absolutely
That
mental.
is mental. It's crazy. Not too surprising though. I really feel like since Alderweireld and Toby, when we had that solid central, pairing, I just feel like we've been fragile, and I'm not surprised that we have such a bad defense. I would definitely put Romero, probably
That's it, just
Davis.
Romero.
Yeah, that would be great, to be honest. Romero, probably Davis and Langley. That would be like my preferred back three. But if Dyer plays, he's honestly like Marmite. He either plays well or doesn't play very well. You either love him or hate him. He's not consistent enough. But hopefully he somehow pulls a worldie and plays really well.
Let's hope so, Gabby. Let's hope so. Thank you for calling in today, my friend, and we'll speak to you very soon, hopefully after 3 points.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on. Big up, Gabby. Let's keep going. And we've got a bit of a name change now. Not Ashmatic no more, Ash Magic.
Come on.
Yes, Ash. How's it going, man? You're on mute again.
Jeez, I'm back.
Yes, Ash Magic. What are you saying?
It's magic, it's magic.
Maurizio Pochettino.
We love it, boys. Yeah. So it's a lot been going on, isn't it?
A lot has been going on, but let's get your initial thoughts on the board's response to the Supporters Trust. What were you thinking?
I think on both sides it was very vague. I don't know. It felt a bit like blasé. It felt a bit like, let's avoid questions. Like, we'll give you questions to appease the fans, and then we'll answer the questions to appease the fans. It felt like both sides were very, very vague, and I don't know I don't know. I feel like, I'm not saying they're moles. I'm not saying that, but I don't feel like they represented the left. I don't think they represented the right. Left is obviously your Levy in or whatever, but they want maybe Conte out or whatever. And then you've got the right that kind of want to get Levy out at all costs. Do you know what I'm trying to say? And then obviously
they're double agents. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying they're double agents. That's how I feel. Like the first time they came in, with their first response, I thought was like, I'm not really feeling that response. That those questions that came out. And then the second time, I felt like because they got backlash for their first response, they we got to make this one a little bit better and ask a bit more specific questions. And it wasn't a lot of questions. I thought it was going to be a lot more questions, a lot more specific questions to kind of put them under more pressure. And my whole thing was I wanted clarity on what the vision of Tottenham Hotspur is. And I'm scratching my head now, and I'm still not sure, other than top four, what the actual vision or what the plan is. I just feel like there's no plan going forward, going ahead. And I think
you just hit the nail on the head there, Ash. I think that is the vision. Top four is the vision.
I think other than that, I can't see anything else. Like when it comes to actually winning trophies, I don't think the passion's there for them to aspire. Like our actual focus is to win trophies and bring home glory to our fans. It doesn't feel like they're for the fans. I would love Daniel Levy to sit down in your studio and you guys had a panel,
Getting grilling from Brian Daigle.
Yeah, I would love that. Asking for a friend. That would be super. That would be brilliant. Like not just Daigle, maybe even if like Sean, because Sean's on the other side a little bit, or just a few other people that might be left and might be right. A few radicals, some people that might be like for his side, against him. With him, being like praising him and stuff, saying like, "Oh, you've done such a great job. 22 years, you've taken our club from here to here since Alan Sugar, blah blah blah." Do you know what I mean? I think you're quite shrewd with the wages structure, because obviously we spend the least amount of wages in the top six or something like that. And So I think that would be a wicked debate. Like, and then there should be like a ring as well, like a WWE ring, and I think KPV should be like definitely the referee,
KPV.
and then The Rock should make an appearance. I'm joking, now.
And lay off the smackdown on Daniel Levy right in front of all of your faces.
Look at Brody, yes. Yeah, boys. Like, literally, like I just wanted a lot more from that, and I just felt underwhelmed as per usual. And I just knew it was going to be blah 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 blah. I knew it was going to be so boring. It's boring now. It's boring. It's boring. It's boring.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's talk about football then. Let's talk about actual football, not just what we hope is going to happen and all that kind of stuff. But big game against Man City this weekend. Does Pedro Porro come straight in for you?
I'm going to be controversial and say no. I'm going to say no.
Why not?
Okay.
Why not?
So, what does Emerson bring to the table? Emerson is more defensively minded. Going forward, not much. But defensively, I've noticed when we transition, Emerson doesn't always push us super high. So when Emerson doesn't push super high, we're not as vulnerable to the counter press or the counter attack on that. Like, so we counter attack on them, and then that leaves us open. So what happened last time was Son pushed up. As soon as Son pushed up and then Perisic pushed up, what Rico Lewis did well, because Rico Lewis was playing in the double pivot with Rodri in the middle. Yeah. So he was in the double pivot with Rodri, and we dealt with that really well in the first half. In the second half, Lewis, he linked up with Mahrez and he doubled up and he won on the outside. And because it was like a double overload on the right-hand side of City and the left-hand side of us, Perisic was isolated sometimes, and sometimes it was Longley that was it Longley or Davies? I can't remember.
Davies.
That was Davies, sorry. Davies that was isolated sometimes. So because Mahrez was able to come inside, Lewis could come on the outside, and then sometimes what would happen is Strong would try to help them out. So essentially there was three Spurs players on that right hand side trying to defend. Now, when we're in that 5-4-1 structure, the front four of the five, the four, they're like a narrow defensive midfield unit. And when someone was getting pulled out of position because we were trying to go on the attack, there was a hole in that space where Spurs would have been next to either Bentancur or what's his face? Or
Højbjerg.
Højbjerg, sorry, yeah, or Højbjerg. And so what happened was they were finding pockets of space. Alvarez was finding pockets of space in that area, and he was affecting. Basically, he was getting a lot of joy. He was like standing. Him and Gundogan were standing in behind basically Bentancur or Højbjerg on their blind side. So the passes were always on for them, and then they were able to attack that space just in front of what's his face? Haaland, just in front of Haaland. So that's why we were getting peppered, because like Pep was smart in switching the tactics. Because in the tactics at first half, we went man to man. When we went man to man, Bentancur was so aggressive and pressing high and trying to win that ball back, and they literally had nothing. Literally, they didn't have much, and they had like half chances. Like Haaland had a couple half chances. He had one decent one, and that was about it. That was the first half, and we ended up nicking 2 goals because our game plan worked in that 5-4-1 formation. So I just think when Emerson plays on that right-hand side, what happens is he sometimes turns our back 2 or our back 3 into a back 4. So sometimes when we push forward, like the back 3, one of the back 3 pushes up. So Davies would have pushed up on the left-hand side. And then what happens is Emerson tucks in and he protects that. He makes a back 3. So it gives us more protection just in case they break on us. And then also with Emerson playing so deep, when we do switch into his side, because he's got so much space to run into, he can actually progress the ball forward, or he can arrive in attacking positions late, and he can come unmarked and affect the game in a different way. Obviously, his output doing that isn't as great as a Porro, but City attack with 5 players. So when they attack with 5 players, we can't go all gun ho and all smash up in the transition and try and break on them, because then we leave ourselves vulnerable, and that's how they create chances and they score goals. So I think what Stanini's going to do is look to the bench, maybe 20 minutes into the second half, he might want to change things tactically, because Porro might not be. I'm not saying Porro's poor defensively. I'm just saying tactically and how Tottenham's shaped and how we're built. I don't know if Porro's ready straight away to jump into that system and play in that certain way when Perisic or Sessegnon will push high up. I don't know if Porro want to join as well, or will it be? I know it's not. I'm just saying, like, for the amount of time he's been here, I just think that the type of coaches we have, they're more defensive minded and they're very cautious. So I think pragmatically, they're going to want to have someone like Emerson start over a Porro for that tactical reason. So, but for me, like, moving away from the whole defensive, like 5-4-1, etc., I think the reason why, because I was with you, Ben, I would like to see Son pushing up and then Kane dropping in the hole and Kane just feeding them. But I think what they do is they have Kane up top as the front man, and then when we're playing out from the back, I think Son drops deep, and I think Kulu drops deep. And the reason for this game in particular is to outnumber Rodri in the middle, their defensive middle, because they play they play 4 at the back, don't they? 4 at the back.
Well, actually, I think the last couple of games they might have played 3 at the back.
That's what I'm saying. So if they play, okay.
Yeah,
well,
sorry.
Let's go with that. So they play 3 at the back. So if they play 3 at the back, sometimes Rodri's isolated by himself in the middle at the back. Sometimes he's in a 2, but if you've got a 2 in the middle, and then you've got Kulu on one side and you've got Son on one side, we either match them for their double pivots, or sometimes when they push higher up and it's just Rodri by himself, then you've got Son that's dropped in deep, you've got Kulu that's dropped in deep, so they're going to outnumber them numerically. And then also, if Son picks up the ball from deep, he's got space to dribble into with the ball, and he's a lot better dribbling with the ball into space than Kane is, if that makes sense. Kane's obviously better just dropping in the hole, which I understand. But Son, I'm not saying Son taking on players, because I think that's where Son's gone wrong. Where this season he's tried to take on his man and he's lost possession. If Son keeps it simple, gets the ball to feet, faces his player, passes it to Kane quick, then he can either make that run curved, or Kane can either switch the play into Kulu, etc. If that makes sense. So I think that's what the state of play is at the moment. I think that's where we change things at the moment against City. So I just
had a thought, Ash, about maybe a curveball that maybe we could throw Man City on Sunday. I was thinking maybe why not go 3-5-2, play Kane, as the furthest midfielder forward, and then stick Sonny and Danjuma up front, so we have that 2 speedsters up front, so we can really hit them on the break every time. Yeah,
but the only thing is when we're out of possession, is that we have to keep the shape, because it's not even like City going to the front 5. In that game, they had like 6-7 players high up the pitch. And that's what hurt us, because we had so many players defending deep, trying to get the ball out the box. It's hard work. If Son's asked not to defend and then Juma's not asked not to defend, then you've got less players protecting that middle space. And they've got a lot of playmakers in Gundogan, in Silva, in Alvarez. Do you know what I'm saying? They're all going to want that middle ground, that middle space, that in attacking third, where they can thread balls into either Mahrez, your Grealish, your Haalands, and then don't forget Ake as well. Ake is good at getting forwards and joining turning into a fullback from centre back position. He's good at and arriving late. And you saw the goal he scored against Arsenal in the cup. That was the reason why, because he's arriving late and he's enjoying an attack. And same with Lewis. Lewis, as much as we see him inside in the midfield position, don't get it twisted. When he's ready, he's going to turn into a fullback and he'll pair wide for that. And that's why Perisic started making mistakes. And although we might defend well for like, I don't know, 90% of the game in a 5-4-1 being very compact, it only takes one mistake for City to create something and score. It only takes a mistake from Lloris or, do you know what I mean, one of our backline to fumble it. And then all of a sudden they're in. Or a moment of brilliance, which you normally see from Man City from one of their players, like Amara's coming up, running up inside, cutting in and shooting and scoring a banger. So I think what we did last time is because we were so compact, we kind of cut off the passing lanes from your likes of Rodri and your likes of Gundogan, because Gundogan reminds me of a bit like a Xhaka kind of, where sometimes he'll be the double pivot and sometimes he'll push forward and attack. And he gets in between our defensive line and our midfield line. He operates in between that space and he can hurt us because he's good at kind of hiding behind a midfielder. So they're blindsided. So like Højbjerg wouldn't see him or Bentancur wouldn't see him. And then all of a sudden he creates an angle, and then before you know it's a diagonal pass and like ball into him, and then he's able to feed it into either Mahrez or Grealish or even Haaland. Do you know what I mean? But I think they're so dangerous. It's like, because they attack with so many numbers, it's hard to kind of like, it's hard to, like, if we go man to man, then we push back. So it's like, what do? Do you go man to man, or do you keep your positional play disciplined? And if we keep a positional play disciplined, then having Danjuma and having Son up top, it kind of we're not as defensive solid, if that makes sense. That's the only downside with it. But I do like your thoughts, because when you've got movement and someone's got space and likes to run off the ball, those two suit down to a T. But I think one other point I was going to make, I think Kulu, he's perfect in that system, man. He really does. He does it better than Son. He drops into that hole. He drops deep, receives the ball, and he holds on to it. So
he's got strength. He's got upper body strength, so he can hold on to it.
Exactly. Whereas Son kind of like does too much in that position, and Kulu works well in bringing in other players into the picture. So he's got options where he can either play Kane in, or he can create a little diamond, where he's at the top of the diamond, he feeds Bentancur, he feeds in Romero, or feeds in Porro. And what I like between the four, the other day you put a picture up, Ben, it was 4 of the players with Porro, Bentancur, Romero. Yeah, they all speak Spanish.
Yeah. And Kulusevski, yeah.
Yeah. Well, minus Kulusevski. They all speak that 3, they all speak Spanish. So you just know the chemistry is going to be 100% there. Do you know what I mean? That means they got more offensive in the banter, etc. Go on.
In that 3-5-2 formation, for me, the biggest problem was the lack of creativity on the ball. But with Porro now entering the fray, all of a sudden, you could think that's a formation that could be a lot more effective, with Porro and Perisic out wide, Kane and Son up front, and obviously a midfield 3 of Basuma, Højbjerg, Bentancur. When you had Emerson and Doherty firing out on the right, then it makes that system completely ineffective, because you got pretty much a big portion of your attack just not doing anything when you go forward. But with Porro there now, I think that formation becomes a lot more effective down that right-hand side with his ability to create and dribble.
So do you think that system changes then, that we actually are proper?
I don't know if we play it on Sunday, but I think there's a good.
I'm saying on Sunday. But in long term,
where do you fit Kulu into that system?
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. Yeah. You can't really fit Kulu in. But I'm saying, if we wanted to play that formation, I bet you that formation becomes a lot more effective now Porro's there rather than Emerson and Doherty.
Yeah, I think the quality of balls from Porro, not just everyone's talking about his crossing, but I think even like his passing ability. It reminds me a little bit of when we had Trippier. Trippier wasn't as explosive as Kyle Walker, but Trippier was really good even from a defensive third, he was really good at passing through the lines and
Build-up play.
Build-up play, really good. And I think with Porro, I think we're going to have a similar player in that. When it comes to explosiveness and agility and mobility, etc., I'm hoping to see that from Porro in a Spurs shirt. And that could be another game changer. But I've realized that infield, when he comes inside a lot and his link-up play, I think Porro is the player we've been missing. And it can help our attacks and the way our state of play in the long run. I really do think so. And I'm hoping second half of the season, it gives the club a lift, especially with, I'm hoping Dan Juma as well. I know he's not a first teamer, but I'm hoping that like when they're on the bench and they can see what's going on and they can see what's missing, sometimes you can come off the bench and you have a new idea and a new way of playing and you can add something a little bit different. And I hope Dan Juma and even Richarlison can add that, even in the City game. I'm hoping they can come on. But I just feel with Richarlison, he's the type of brother that needs game time. He needs games. He needs rhythms. I don't know. It's hard with Rich because Rich needs to be up front. He needs to be the centre forward. I don't know him either flank is as effective than Juma. I feel like he can play either flank, but I just feel like Rich looks better when he's up top. Like when he scored against was it Marseille? When he came at White Hart Lane?
Yeah, Marseille, yeah.
The position he scored in was like a centre forward position.
Yeah.
He just the header, boom, like that aerial threat. I could imagine Porro whipping the ball in and Richarlison. And he's got that type of personality when he needs to be the main man. Like that's how I feel about it. Like I like if Rich was to start certain games, I'd like to see him up top, and I would like to see Kane as a 10, and I would like Rich just to stay there in that position, to stay there, because when he's on the left or on the right, sometimes I see him, he runs too early, gets offside, and he doesn't impact the game as much. I'm just not sure about Rich coming on and making impacts, because that's a lot of the games that he's come on. He's had to do that. He's just had to come on and try and make an impact. But
a lot of the time he's been on the right-hand side as well, when he's just not as, I don't know, he's not as effective. But
he's not as effective, exactly. I just feel like, I know everyone's saying his position is left wing forward or centre forward, but I just think, like, looking at him in a Spurs shirt only, isolating it alone, I think centre forward's more for him.
He literally, I don't think he's played one game in centre forward from the Tottenham shirt.
Has he not?
Can't remember one.
Not one, no. Kane's played every game. Apart from the Preston game, Kane's played every game this season, hasn't he?
Rishi didn't play that game, though, did he? Yeah,
No.
Yeah.
What about on the Chelsea game when we played a 4 up front? Was he not up front then?
Yeah, he played up front alongside Kane. That's right. That's true. That's fair. He did do that a couple times, but that was only for a few minutes.
It was only for a few minutes. And then I think against Arsenal he came on, but he was on the left-hand side, I think. Was he not? I think he was on the left.
I think he was on the right, wasn't he? I can't remember.
On the right. Oh, then maybe he switched over, because when he had that chance...
Oh, no, you're right. He was on the left. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. So I just wonder if when he comes on, does Son switch over to the right? And because even Son can play in the right back, because obviously Kulu's doing a job there. Like he's nailed that position down. I just feel like, because even Son against Preston, North End, when he went over to the right, he scored a goal, 2 goals. The first goal from outside the box was on the right, and then the second goal, he arrived in the box on the right-hand side again. So I just wonder if Son just needs a bit of... sometimes they need to just kind of be flexible in that front 3 or front 2 as attacking midfielders or wing forwards. They just need to switch around sometimes just to mix it up and give the wing back a bit more space in those wide areas and allow the fullback to push on as well. But yeah, that's just my thing anyway. I don't know.
Score prediction, Ash?
2-1 City.
Oh, he said it. He said it, and he's over.
No.
Oh, wait a minute. Huh?
2-1 Spurs, you man. Yeah, all right, cool.
Yeah. Wink. Yeah. Cool.
There
guys.
Nice one. Have a good weekend, bro. We'll speak to you soon.
You too. Peace.
See you later. And that was Ashmatic. Let's get on. Well, I actually got a super chat first. We got a super chat from Awesome All saying, ask people from 20 years ago. The excuse was that we were going to build a new stadium. 20 years from now, the excuse is that we're going to have a new hotel and new gymnasium. The excuses will just keep rolling, keep rolling, keep rolling. But let's go on to our next guest. And it's the man you've all been waiting for. It is KPV. Skirt on, KPV.
Oh,
no. There you go.
Come on, KPV, get yourself off mute. Do it right. Come on, man.
You're the one that keeps asking me to mute it, even though I closed my door. You can't hear anything. So
I didn't ask you anything, KPV. I'm here talking on the show.
Well, fair enough. But yeah, Spurs Man City at home. I've actually forgot to say that Dyer actually scored against City when it was under Poch and we won 4-1, 2015, and Dyer actually scored. So and you two last year said that City haven't scored in N17 since 2015, and I believe Ben tweeted on WeAreTottenham said it was the 25th, but it was the 26th, dumbass. 26th September 2015.
What was the 26th? Mate. What was
26th. The last time they scored, I think, in N17?
Oh, right.
Yeah, it was 26th September. It was the week after my birthday.
Coming out with the facts.
Facts, mate. It's blockbuster time. It's main event time. If you didn't know, now you know.
Now you know. Damn right.
This game, man. Kulu just loves to goal against City. Can he become, I believe, the first man to score in 3 consecutive games? Can he? Or has anyone else done it? 3 consecutive games against City.
Has Sonny not done it? Has Sonny done it?
Wait. Son done it in the Premier League 2017 when Chelsea won the title. That was his first goal. But Champions League, home leg, 1-0. They thought the ball went out, but VR checked and it stayed in. And I'm going to say this, but Delph was the one actually injured Kane's ankle. How do you not get sent off? And he was just telling him, oh, I didn't do it. Bum Kalia, get the hell out of here, mate. You're shit. Baby Delph is just a bitch, man. I don't like him. But then he gets 2 stunning goals at the Etihad, and you two scream when Toby scored. But I've been watching that video every time. It was actually Lewente. So change your title of that video.
Oh, you caught us out. You caught us out, Kyle.
Yeah, because I watched it every time. And Son got, 3, in the Champions League. So that was 4, 5, 6, 7. He's got 7 against them, but they're in different competitions. But Kulu, can he become the first man to score in 3 consecutive games? Son, that'll be 8 in total. But Kulu, I know he can. And Kane, he scored home and away when Leicester won the title, and we won 4-1 and 2-1 at the Etihad on Eriksen's birthday. And I want to say happy birthday to Winks for yesterday. I know he probably is going to be watching this.
For sure.
Of course he's watching.
He watches your call every week, Kyle.
I know he's going to be watching the game on Sunday because, it was 3 seasons ago on his birthday we beat them. We took 4 points off them when Liverpool won the title. We took 4 points. City thought they won it at the Etihad, but it was a handball by Laporte, and Jesus thought he scored the winner. You see, VR is always on our side. Is it going to be on our side this weekend? We'll have to find out. Hopefully it will be. Hopefully it will be, because City just can't beat us, but they did. We have a good record against them when it comes to them at home, but I don't want to lose any more home games, man. Against the top 6 is not great, but enough of losing a home game. I'm tired of this.
KPV, is Porro going to be starting on Sunday?
Of course. He has to come straight in, man. Emerson Royale, I knew he scored a couple of weeks ago against City at the Etihad, but that was probably his best performance in the first shirt. But yeah, we were 2-0 up. We were keeping a clean sheet for a couple of minutes, but then second half, those lot come back and score 4. Lucky, but Pep said the title race was over for them. Are you sure about that, mister? You still might win it. You're only just a few points behind them lot down Seven Sisters Road. I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't want those lot. Who cares? But Sunday, Poro starts, and like players score on their debuts, Dan Juma, and let's get Poro to start. Like, Dan Juma scoring on his debut against City. Bergwijn started and scored. Like, can Danjuma do it? I hope so. Score prediction: 4-0 at home, easy to Spurs. What is everyone's favourite Spurs versus Man City moment? I want everyone in the chat to tell me what is their favourite moment in this game.
Mine was Raheem Sterling's disallowed goal.
Mine, I think everyone knows, it was that Peter Crouch header at the Etihad. Champions League, he qualified. I bet you were there, Ben, weren't you?
I was there, yeah. I was.
That was the best moment. Tim, I bet you was probably in the pub watching it, going scream loud, getting the beers out.
I was watching it with my dad, actually. Favourite moment, maybe Kane's masterclass last season. That's one of my favourite moments.
Okay. Like, but mine...
What's wrong with that one, Kyle?
Kulusevski, man. Another Kulu masterclass. Incoming. Kulu, yeah, like, put some respect on Kulu, people. Like, people seem to think Saka's better than him, but you're wrong. Kulu is miles ahead. I don't know why you put Saka ahead of him in a North London derby thing. What were you thinking?
What were you thinking?
Kulu's been injured, that's all. I think Kulu's a better player.
Yeah, well, he still
Getting
played
called
in
out
that
by
thing.
KPV. Hard.
Like, I call out people every time they put someone else ahead of the ginger from Sweden, but no one else is getting ahead of him. Like, Foden ain't. I know Foden's left, but right wing, they've got, I don't know who they've got at right wing, no idea, but they can put maybe Gundogan there, but they can't. But Kulu, Kane, and Danjuma for me, but I know Conte's not going to be there. I want to wish the gaffer a speedy recovery. And yeah, so get the win on Sunday, and then I believe we got, what was it?
Leicester.
West Ham? Leicester, yeah. Like, you know,
Get
Leicester
it right,
were getting
KPV,
smashed.
come on.
Leicester were getting smashed at the King Power. Like, the Bergwijn moment there last season still gives me goosebumps. I watched it, and the Flying Dutchman, and you watched Harry Kane celebrating with a fan, and Lucas jumping on the steward. Like, what is that all about, man? Grabbing the fan tap. Come on. Like, Man City, Leicester, in the space of the week. Can we beat the two cities? It's coming.
All right,
Home,
Carl.
away.
Good
Yo.
to see you, Carl. Always
Big
a
up,
pleasure having you
KPV.
on.
See ya, boys. And as always, Levy out. We want they go in, so we want they go in. In.
In.
Yeah.
Big up KPV. And I think that is all we have time for today. Stellini's press conference is on the way. And obviously the watch along on Sunday with Barry and Danny. So look forward to that. Tune in for that. And we'll see you all very soon. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always,
Come on, you Spurs.